Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Thanks for joining us for our sensitive data identification office hours. So we're going to be talking about a new feature that we just launched that helps you prioritize your APIs based on risk, and we'll get into it a little bit more as we go. But go ahead and ahead. So we've got a pretty short agenda today. We just want to introduce this feature, talk about the problem that it's solving, and then get some Q&A going throughout the session. So again, don't hesitate. You don't have to wait till the end. You can drop questions or comments as we go. So my name is Nicole Jones. I'm a product marketing manager at Stackhawk, and who's going to be leading this session today is Aaron White, our VP of Product and Design. And he had a heavy hand in this feature and building it out. So he is your go-to expert today.
Oh, that was pretty aggressive. Heavy hand. That was definitely involved. I'm not sure if it was a heavy hand.
There were a lot of people involved, let me tell you. But Aaron pretty much led the charge, so we'll let him talk you through it.
And most importantly, I have a fresh new haircut, so we're good to go.
That he gets to show off today. So again, doubling down, we would love for this session to be engaging. So feel free to drop questions in the Q&A throughout. You don't have to wait till the end. You can also share feedback, reactions, a thumbs up, thumbs down in the chat, or just let us know like what your experience with this problem has been.
Okay, I think next one's me. One more.
Still me. One more. So just really quick for anyone who's joining us that isn't familiar with Stackhawk, what we are all about is helping security teams understand their evolving attack surface and helping developers find and fix API and application security bugs before they deploy to production. So that is exactly what we're going to talk about today, is helping security teams understand their evolving attack surface and what they should be focusing on and how this can make their lives easier when they're on that journey. Now it's over to you.
Cool. Thanks everybody. As Nicole said, I'm Aaron. I am the VP of Product and Design. So what we're going to talk about is sort of like this awareness gap. So over the last year and a half, we've been sort of like talking to customers and prospects, and what we sort of discovered and what we've kind of always known is like APIs are really applications today. Modern apps are really just the front end for your APIs, and how your applications interact with your systems are through the APIs. So essentially, like APIs are just applications. And the cool thing that we're seeing here at Stackhawk is, on average in this year, we're seeing like 8 to 12 new apps being added under test per week. So our customers are starting to discover their APIs with our new API discovery functionality, and now we're adding in even more, to that equation. And we're starting to see, like APIs are really that number one attack vector in modern applications. If you have unprotected endpoints, it can lead to really bad things, compliance violations. Hopefully we don't have to deal with data breaches and fraud, but it's definitely something that is out there. And every business sort of depends on their APIs. And if your APIs fail or if they're compromised, your applications fail. If they're insecure, your business is at risk. So what happens when you're sort of like flying blind, right? You have all these questions. Are we testing the right APIs? You have uncertainty. Close this window. About where do you focus? How do you know what you need to prioritize to get under test? You have all of these code repositories and these applications, but where do you start? You have sort of like misaligned or misplaced priorities. You're testing what you know about. The easy to find APIs are some of the ones that are the highest risk to your business. Incomplete risk reporting. You can't show executives or your leadership, like what's actually being protected and are they the right things to be protected. And the incident response gaps, what was exposed? Where was that API? Was it tested? Do we have the history? Can we run the reports? Can we look at things and actually show that, we have coverage in the places where we need the coverage? And just overall like compliance challenges, difficulty proving, you're protecting that sensitive or regulated data. So how are teams solving this today? So we've had a lot of conversations with our customers and prospects over the last year. Most commonly we see like traffic-based monitoring. So monitoring your gateways and endpoints. But the problem with that is like it doesn't see everything. It's only seeing the endpoints that are actually receiving the traffic. So you have an incomplete picture of anything that could be exposed or what's actually in the APIs themselves, right? We've actually had customers, lots of spreadsheets, and we're always down for a good spreadsheet. But as soon as you create the spreadsheet, it becomes out of date, and also it just doesn't scale. It's super expensive, it's time consuming, and it's never in date. Like it's always out of date and not reliable, right? Obviously tribal knowledge, it's like, well, we know what's in the API, our developers wrote the API and they told us what's going on. But again, that becomes a little bit unreliable. And as teams are focusing on shipping the highest priority things for their business, documenting the API and communicating those changes isn't always the most important task to get done. And it can also be time consuming. So then you're left with just sort of guesswork, an intuition versus that data-driven understanding of what is actually out there. It all just becomes guesswork at that point. And you don't really have any solid understanding or solid data to actually drive your prioritization decision-making on what to get tested and how often it needs to get tested. Causing delays, introduces risks. And then in the world of AI-powered development or AI-assisted development, none of these things can keep pace with as fast as developer and engineering teams are shipping code today. So as we start to look at your journey to securing those APIs, we have this challenge, like which APIs pose the greatest risk, which are, as we know, not all APIs are equal. Some return status checks, social security numbers, some are payment details, and traditional discovery methods just can't really tell the difference. So we started with API discovery to help customers understand what exists. We started with the source code to look at what applications and APIs are being developed. And we're servicing that now in API discovery and telling you, here's what exists. We have some basic, starting with development activity, what's changing the most often. And then you have that prioritization. So we start with like code, and then through the StackHawk lifecycle, running those tests, getting your developers that fix and remediation information as quickly as possible within the context of their code so that they can actually fix the problems before pushing to production. So where are we at now? What are we missing? So now today, what we're announcing and we're talking about is sensitive data identification. So as part of the API discovery process, being able to automatically analyze your source code to look at which APIs are handling sensitive data. So let's jump into that real quick. So a sensitive data identification is a powerful new capability, and we're trying to help security teams understand the risk to their business across their entire attack surface. So identifying high-risk APIs, which APIs are handling sensitive data, PII, PHI, and PCI data specifically, and we'll cover that more in a minute. Providing that real-time prioritized risk to your business, helping you understand what exists, what APIs are changing through development activity and which are handling sensitive data, and using that as additional data points for deciding which APIs I need to get under test next within StackHawk. And it reduces and eliminates that tribal knowledge, the guesswork, and the incomplete picture that you're getting with traffic-based monitoring. So as we can see here, from our attack surface page in StackHawk, I've got my list of repositories, applications, and APIs that we've identified as having a testable repository within your code bases. I can still see which frameworks are detected. I can see the development activity. When was the last commit? Who made that last commit? How many commits have happened over the last 30 days? And now when you click on a repository name, you get this panel that slides out where we give you an overview of the repository to give you a better understanding of what is this repository. It's a nice description about that, and some metadata information about that code base. And then on the sensitive data tab, I can now see the matched variable names in that code base, um, and what we triggered against in our backend and our algorithm, and then provide you with a severity level for that variable name. These are high, mediums, and low of how often that these terms appear. They sort of a severity score, if you will, of how important are they, within that code base. We can see the categories, again, PCI, PHI, and PII information, and then providing a little bit more understanding, is this contained within a function or a class? Within that code base, I can search and filter for all of these variables across that repository, and get a good picture of what's actually happening in that from a sensitive data standpoint. So why did we start with the source code? So every API that exists started as a code in a repository, or is in the code in a repository. So we've taken that approach through API discovery to always start with that source of truth, from your source code system. So again, with API discovery, we support all major source code management platforms: GitHub, GitLab, Azure DevOps, and Bitbucket. Discover those APIs before they even hit production. It provides you complete coverage across all of your source code, not just the ones that are generating the traffic. We provide you with real-time updates as things are changing. So as we are seeing code changes in API discovery, we're also reanalyzing for sensitive data as well, along with commit activity. And we're providing you with that risk-based prioritization, so that you can better plan and execute your testing strategy, and ultimately giving you like true visibility into your attack surface, including zombie, shadow APIs, forgotten endpoints, that traditional tools just sort of miss. So what are we detecting? So currently we're looking for personal information, PII, so email addresses, social security numbers, names, birthdays, things of that nature. Payment processing data, so PCI, so credit card numbers, CV codes, expiration date, payment processing information, and personal health information, PHI, so medical records, patient identifiers, health provider information, things like that. Again, these are all searchable and filterable in that sensitive data tab, so that you can easily sort of look for things in there, and ensure that you're covering all of the known sort of sensitive variables in your code. We support, I believe, 11 languages currently, so all major programming languages that our customers have. So TypeScript, Rust, Python, Scala, PHP. Ensuring that we have significant coverage across all of your repositories and languages and code in your code bases. And what you get right away. So with this feature, we're really excited because it helps give you that additional data point and smart prioritization. So as you're identifying, and now that you can see your entire attack surface, being able to go and look at what is the most risk to my business and what is changing the most often, and I can come up with a better plan and a prioritized data-driven plan for what do we need to get under test next? What teams do we need to work with, to get better testing coverage? It provides risk alignment with your business now, not just that tribal knowledge or your cursory understanding of what's happening, but we can actually see what's risk or where that risk is to my business, and then we can use that as that data point to help make a better decision on what we need to get under test. We're seeing better coverage across testing with our customers, seeing a 55% average increase in API security coverage because we're identifying those APIs, we're allowing them to compare that to their understanding of their APIs and the business context, and then helping them get those APIs under test so they can ensure that they've got that compliance and audit sort of history of things, that need to be under tested. Providing with audit confidence, we can show which APIs exist that have regulated or sensitive data in them and give you that testing history. And it's zero overhead. So the best part is like it doesn't require an agent. There's no infrastructure changes. This is all built into API discovery. So out of the box, we're exposing and giving you visibility into what exists, and then automatically identifying which of those APIs are handling sensitive data and surfacing that information to you, along with the development activity as well. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Nicole, was there other polls or other questions? I guess we want to open it to the floor.
Yeah, we want to open it up to the floor, but we have one main question of how you're solving this problem today. So I just launched that poll. If you don't mind chiming in and just letting us know, we would love to hear how you're solving this today. And we've gone over all of the history of the different ways to solve it, but we would still love to know like what you're relying on and how we can help. And while we have that launched, just some quick housekeeping items. So after the session, you'll receive an email of the recording with the slides, ways to get in touch with us, as you see here. So if you are interested in learning more, you can get a personalized demo with us. You can just email us and chat with somebody to see how we can help out if a demo makes sense to you. Or if you're just ready to get started, if you're a current customer, you can log into your account. If you already have API discovery enabled, you'll be able to see this new sensitive data column populated. If you don't have API discovery enabled, if you go to the attack surface page, it'll direct you on how to get that all set up, and you'll be able to see your whole API landscape. And then soon after that, a prioritized list of which APIs are going to pose the most risk to your business. And if you're not a current customer, you can always start a free trial that gives you access to the enterprise features, which includes API discovery and this sensitive data identification, which is embedded in our API discovery feature. So a few different ways that you can get more information, or if you just want to try it out on your own, you're more than welcome. Yeah, it seems like tribal knowledge and gateway monitoring, of course, yes. And not having a solution is very common. That's what we've seen. Luckily, nobody's dealing with manual spreadsheets because that is extremely painful. So
Oh no, they're definitely out there. I know.
I know, but nobody in this session at least seems to be going through that pain, which is
Well, nobody wants to admit it.
yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, we wanted to keep this session short and sweet for you guys, just to cover what we announced in a little bit more detail, give you a sneak peek of what it looks like actually in the platform. Let me go ahead and end that. I'll share the results.
Cool. And then I guess make sure to stay tuned. We have some more things happening with API discovery here in the later this summer. Some more big announcements are on their way.
Yep.
Really excited about.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks,
Cool.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
See you later.